Nitty-gritty on how Hillary tried to paint Trump as Russia's pawn, and the media again protects its masters by saying nothing. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. How many right-wing conspiracy theories have been validated in just the last few months? It's hard to keep track. We've got another for you tonight. Special Counsel John Durham finally resurfacing after a 3-year dive into how the government investigated Trump-Russia collusion. He filed a 13-page motion on Friday in the criminal case against Clinton lawyer Michael Sussmann, the details of which are frankly incredible. In short, Hillary Clinton paid people to spy on Donald Trump, and those people then lied about what they found to the FBI in order to create Russian collusion. Yes, it's one more shot of validation for the former President Trump, and more evidence that Washington is really bad, run by scoundrels. Do you remember how the media reacted when Trump first started saying that he was being spied on? The high and mighty D.C. press told their readers, told their viewers, that the president was insane. Just before the 2020 election, Trump sat down with 60 Minutes. Enjoy.
The biggest scandal was when they spied on my campaign. They spied on my campaign.
There's no real evidence of that.
Of course there is.
No.
It's all over the place. Leslie,
Sir,
they spied on my campaign and they got caught.
Can I say something? You know, this is 60 Minutes. And we can't put on things we can't verify.
You won't put it on because it's bad for Biden.
We can't put on things we can't verify.
Leslie, they spied on my campaign.
Well, we can't.
And they couldn't verify it because they didn't want to verify it, because nobody ever looked into any of it because it didn't advance their preferred narrative. This is 60 Minutes, she said. This was after like 3 years of Russia collusion, and they hadn't verified anything because nobody looked into anything except for the fact that obviously Trump was Putin's pawn. And now we learn that it was all fake, that Trump was right, that it was all true what he was saying. Everybody thought he was insane. The whole country thought he was insane at first. Or at least according to John Durham, I should say, it's been validated, who's been working on this for 3 years. But back to the details at hand. Clinton weasel Michael Sussmann, you'll be getting a lot of this tan face here in the next couple months, I suspect, was indicted earlier this year for making false statements to the FBI. Sussmann told the FBI he had evidence of a secret back channel between the Trump organization and a Russian bank, which is called Alpha Bank, a bank that's very closely tied to the Kremlin and Putin. Ooh. Sussmann went to the FBI and convinced them that he, as Michael Sussmann, had no skin in the game whatsoever. He was just a concerned citizen doing the right thing. That was a complete and total lie. Sussmann is a slimeball attorney who had more skin in the game than any amount of skin in almost any game that's ever been played. According to Durham's motion, Sussmann had assembled and conveyed the allegations to the FBI on behalf of at least 2 specific clients, Rodney Jaffe at a U.S.-based internet company and the Clinton campaign, who he was working for. Oh, but I have no skin in this game. I'm just trying to do the right thing. According to Durham, Rodney Jaffe tasked these researchers to mine internet data to establish an inference and narrative, establish a narrative tying then-candidate Trump to Russia. So far, Rodney Jaffe has not been charged with any crimes, but this thing is just getting started. The wording here is what's very important, though. Establishing a narrative is much different than investigating. When you're looking for something, you're investigating. You establish a narrative when there is no narrative, when you just need to create the image of something that isn't there. You establish a narrative. This is pure evil. Welcome to politics. Welcome to Washington. And let's take you back. Hillary, in her own words, during a debate in 2016 with the man who would become the president, you're going to hear a woman working to frame her political opponent right here.
We have never in the history of our country been in a situation where an adversary, a foreign power, is working so hard to influence the outcome of the election. And believe me, they're not doing it to get me elected. They're doing it to try to influence the election for Donald Trump.
Can you imagine how pissed off he was having to sit there and listen to that? Here was the president's response.
The reason they blame Russia is because they think they're trying to tarnish me with Russia. I know nothing about Russia. I know about Russia, but I know nothing about the inner workings of Russia. I don't deal there. I have no businesses there. I have no loans from Russia.
So according to Durham, Sussman took Rodney Jaffe's data. That's the guy that was mining for all the data, trying to create the narrative. He took Jaffe's data to the CIA, Sussman did. But Sussman cherry-picked the information to make it look like Trump servers had a disproportionate and alarming amount of contact with a Russian cell phone provider. Here's part of what was just released on Friday. In reality, there were a total of more than 3 million lookups of Russian phone provider 1 IP addresses that originated with U.S.-based IP addresses. Fewer than 1,000 of those lookups originated with IP addresses affiliated with Trump Tower. So Sussman tried to make it look like, oh my, look at all this connection between Trump and Russia through this cell. No, it's not like that at all. In fact, this connection's everywhere in this country. Sussman hid that when he pushed this all on the FBI, saying that he had no skin in the game. They were desperate to make anything to make it look like collusion was a fact. Just anything they could do. And then, of course, it was off to the races after that. Jake Sullivan is our current national security advisor. He was in on this. He was all over. He was on CNN helping to push this phony narrative. He should be immediately removed from the White House and investigated, but you can almost guarantee he won't be. In 2019, Inspector General Horowitz released a report on FISA abuse. The FBI investigated whether there were cyber links between the Trump Organization and Alpha Bank, but had concluded by early February 2017 that there were no such links. So the entire narrative had been disproven by February 2017. You're talking about the first days of the Trump White House. The FBI, the intel community knew that this was all nonsense. They determined there was no such connection between the Trump Organization and Russia before the Mueller report looking into the collusion was even commissioned. Our intel communities knew this. They knew it all, and yet they allowed Hillary's paid-for narrative to destroy the Trump presidency, which it did in a lot of ways. They were just burdened by investigation, and they did it because the swamp didn't like Trump, and they didn't know what to do with this guy who was just a renegade that came out of nowhere and won the White House. As I mentioned, there are many pieces to this slowly leaking out. From the Washington Examiner, DNI John Ratcliffe, this is one of Trump's guys, declassified Russia investigation documents on Tuesday, including handwritten notes from former CIA Director John Brennan showing he briefed Obama in 2016 on an unverified Russian intelligence report, claiming Hillary Clinton planned on tying Trump to Russia's hack of the DNC to distract from her use of a private email server. So Obama knew in 2016, it is alleged, that this was going to happen, that it was all fake. Late last year, Ratcliffe released 1,000 documents to Durham to assist in his investigation, former DNI saying the Hillary Clinton campaign created the Trump-Russia collusion, and the intelligence community and the FBI knew that, and they briefed not just Obama, but Biden as well, and the entire national security team. And Ratcliffe saying he expected there would be indictments forthcoming, and we're starting to see some of that now. The Clinton campaign made up the entire scandal, and Obama and Biden knew it was fake. That's a crazy, crazy story involving like every major player in politics for the last decade: Trump, Hillary, Obama, Biden. And yet somehow, our press in this country, our mainstream press, could not care less. Imagine that.
We've got some news about the accounting firm for the Trump Organization, longtime accounting firm, now cutting ties with the organization.
The Trump Organization's accounting firm now says nearly a decade worth of financial statements can no longer be relied upon.
There is a new push by former President Donald Trump to capitalize on his name and brand, thoroughly blurring the lines between his political ambitions and his business interests.
That's all from today. That's what these idiots talked about today. They would not mention the biggest story, maybe of the first few months of this year, but they'll talk about that. They'll talk about Trump. They just won't touch this story. That's how corrupt it is. How scary is that? I mean, that's scary. Politico today reporting on Trump. Just a different story. Trump's latest political obsession, the baseball team owner not towing the line. I don't get it. I don't get how do you even go to work for these places? It's unbelievable. For years, all they could talk about was Trump and Russia, and yet now, after 10 million hours of broadcast time and 80 billion pages of the New York Times that your dog can piss on, they don't have anything to say about this. They don't have 1 minute or 1 page to talk about how it was all created by Hillary Clinton and Obama and Biden knew about it. Really? Today's front pages, nothing. Not a single mention on the covers of the Washington Post and New York Times. Former President Trump releasing this statement. Can you imagine if the roles were reversed and the Republicans, in particular Trump, got caught illegally spying into the office of the president? All hell would break loose and the electric chair would immediately come out of retirement. He ain't wrong.